Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Brian Howard Blackson Jr., founder, creator, and author of Venus and Orion Comics. And today I want to answer a particular question that has been asked of me every time I go into conventions or even through emails and social media itself. And that question is it possible to make a living off of creating comic books? And the technical answer is yes. But the realistic answer is not everyone. But before I begin to explain how it's possible, I want to ask you this question. Would you still create your comic if no one ever reads it? If it never becomes popular? If your Kickstarter never explodes? And even if your Twitter and your social media never gains any tractions at all? Because if the answer is no, then you might as well stop while you're ahead. Not because you're untalented, not because your ideas are bad, but because comics is one of the biggest money sinks that I've ever experienced as a creator. And this is the most common question asked of me as an indie comic book creator. And I'm pretty sure other indie comic book creators was asked this very same question. And I understand why people ask this question, especially if you're a creator yourself or you dream to be a creator and want to go out and pursue your dreams and create IPs of your own. And this oftentimes has a lot to do with seeing successful creators such as Todd McFarlane, Achira Oda, Akira Teriyama, Tite Kubo, Robert Kirkman, and many other successful creators that are out there. We see popularity, we see merchandise, we see animations, we see books selling millions of copies. But what most people don't see are the thousands of creators behind them who never ever reach that level at all. And that's the reality of creative work. The majority of creators won't even ever live to be able to make a living from comic books from their creative works. And not because they're bad, but because this business side is brutal. When I say creating comics is a money sink, it's definitely a money sink. And I explain some of the reasons why. Now, for starters, depending on how much money you're going to have to spend in order to go out there and create comics and hopefully become a successful comic book creator, you have to fit in either one of three categories. And I explain what those categories are in this video right here. So I advise you to go check it out. And that determines on how much money you're definitely going to be kicking out when trying to pursue this craft. Now, you have to keep in mind of artist cost, printing, Kickstarter fees, shipping, promotional materials, convention tables, hotels, and travels. So before I even launched Very On Colors Vampire Killers Chapter 1, I knew it was going to cost me some money. And what I didn't realize was how quickly that stuff begins to pile up, especially around the time of the campaign itself. I had to make sure I had to order boards, plastic sleeves, boxes, and then I also had to keep in mind of the shipping costs and how much it would cost me in order to ship these out, either international and also domestically as well. And then you have to also take under consideration when it comes to if things happen to not go your way, mistakes happen, misprints happen, which the printing company that I used in the past for the first Kickstarter for Very On Colors Vampire Killers, they made a mistake and really fumbled the first batch, and I had to go out and I had to work that out, and I had to kick out some extra money to repay for shipping in order to make sure that my backers and my customers received the books that they had backed and everything was up to quality. So that is a lot that you have to keep in mind. And if you are serious about presenting yourself professionally, that stuff is going to cost you. It adds up over time. And that's why I call comic books a money sink, because it absolutely is. Now, here's the part that most indie comic creators don't want to hear. And if you're new to the indie comic space and you want to actually read indie comics, this is something that you must keep in mind. See, being an indie comic creator, such as myself, there's a lot of stigma that comes with being an indie comic creator. And that's the fact is that a lot of indie comic books don't make it past issue 1. And this is where the trust issue comes when it comes to the reader and the indie comic creator. And as I said before, indie comics is a money sink. And most readers are afraid to invest in something that they don't know is able to sustain itself or make it past issue 1. And this happens because of various reasons, because either the money runs out or there's a lot of indie comic book creators that aren't consistent with their work at all. They create a book and then oftentimes disappear. You never see them again. And years later, they may come back with a book. You're not sure. So a lot of people who want to actually read indie comics They're afraid to invest in the first issue because they're afraid that if I grab this, there's a possibility that this series may die the first issue. So when somebody sees a brand new indie comic, they're not just evaluating the story, they're also evaluating whether that this series is going to be around next year or not. That's why as an indie comic book creator, your job is to also build that trust. And people begin to trust you even more when you make it around issues 4, because now they know that you have built the audience and now you're 4 books in. So the chances are there's a possibility that you may not go anywhere. And this is where you start seeing people start to actually go in and actually want to invest in your stories. And Venus Orion Comics is a perfect example of building that trust. Just last year, I released my first comic book series called Orion Colors Vampire Killers Chapter 1. It was the first issue that was launched on Kickstarter and it had honest success. It was fully funded, readers received their books, and I was able to establish the first pillar for Venus Orion Comics. But here's the truth of it all. The profit wasn't enough to fully finance Chapter 2 alone. So in the end of all of this, I still have to finance Chapter 2 with my own money. Yes, I still have to finance these books myself because I don't have the audience to be able to generate the profits that will be able to fully cover the next entry or the next chapter in a comic book series. And you have to build that over time. And how long it takes, that depends on the quality of your story and people who become aware of the IP that you have and actually share it around to other people. Now, here's the thing that you must keep in mind. As I said before, being an indie comic book creator is a money sink, and you'll be a fool to put all your eggs in one basket in this. You have to also amass various different forms of revenue in order to help pursue this endeavor. And me, in this case, I have various sources of income besides doing Venus Orion Comics. I have a multimedia studio where I do photography with my brothers and we go on various contracts and do jobs in order to make money. I also have a t-shirt business with my brothers called Strike and Kill Tees, where we do custom t-shirts for business, content creators, you name it. And I'm also a 3D hentai animator, which I've been making a lot of money doing that since 2016, and it's also partly responsible for the financing or the financial backing of Venus Orion Comics. And I'm not saying this to brag, I'm saying this to allow you to understand is not to put all your effort or all your faith into this one business endeavor. You have to have other sources of income in order to continue to do this. And to add on top of this, my father will be retiring soon, so he will be investing more into Venus Orion Comics as well. So, as far as conventions are concerned, just last year, I went on a promotional tour to promote my book, Orion Colors Vampire Killers Chapter 1. And I must say, I had an amazing time, despite some of the mishaps along the way. And you can definitely check out that video as well. But at the end of the year, when I sat back and I started calculating everything, and I looked at it from a financial point of view and a perspective, it just doesn't make sense in 2026 of this year to continue to go on comic book convention tours. Because after I turned around and looked at how much it costs for travel, the expenses along the way, table costs, food, hotels, opportunity costs, it doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint. So I decided this year that I'm gonna spend more time focusing and taking that money instead of going to conventions to actually create more promotional material, put more time into producing more books, and also looking to hire even more artists so I can officially be able to kick out more promotional material for phase 1, which is the foundation of my universe. Because I got 8 other comic book series that I really do want to get up and running for you guys who are very interested in that. Looking back, only selling maybe 20 to 30 books and barely breaking even at a table that you have spent a lot of money on just doesn't make any sense. And also looking at the culture of conventions aren't the same anymore compared to how it was years ago, where it was about the comics. Now it's about the celebrities and social media clicks and everything like that. It kind of pivoted away from comics. So instead, I'm gonna spend more time investing in trailers and other aspects of Venus Orion Comics. And this was the best decision I ever made because thanks to you guys, I sold more comics this year than going to any of the conventions that I went last year. And I really appreciate that. And I'm still selling comics to this point. And I really thank you guys for that. So I want you to listen very closely if you're planning or you want to try to make a living off of comics. The secret is it isn't the comic that's going to allow you to make a living off of comics. Because as I said before, comics is a money sink. You're going to be spending money in order to produce the comic, and that money that you make off the comic is used to make more comics. But to offset or to balance that, to make a living, the money is in the merchandise. Yes, merchandise is where you're going to be making your living off of your IP as a comic book creator. And what do I mean by that? See, you have to pay attention. When you look at companies like Shonen Jump, yes, they make millions. They make a lot of money selling manga. But it isn't the manga itself that where they make most of the money. Most of the money comes from the merchandise, the toys, the video games, the apparel. That's where the money comes in. And what farther proves that, look at Western studios. There's one particular DC comic series called Young Justice. Young Justice season 1 was very popular. It had great reviews, great ratings. People enjoyed it. But at one point, it didn't live to see an extra season at that time. And the reason why, it's because it wasn't selling merchandise. See, when it comes to comics, when it comes to animations, you can have a great series. You can have a great animation. But if it's not going to sell merchandise, where most of the revenue comes from, then it's not worth it from a business standpoint. So they end up pulling the plug on those projects. So yes, merchandise is where you're going to be making your money. And another perfect example of an indie comic creator that saw massive success and massive gains was also Eric July from the Rippaverse. Yes, when he released his first project, which was ISOM saw massive success. But that massive success didn't only just come from his comic book. It came from the merchandise that he was selling along with it. The bundles that he sold along with ISOM. That's where all that money came from. He was able to see a boost in his revenue just off of the merchandise itself. So if you are planning to go out there and make a living off your comic books, that's the goal that you have to pivot to. But in order to sell merchandise, people have to be able to resonate with your IP to begin with. When you're able to make money off of merchandise, that's how you know you have an IP, you have an idea, you have a creative vision that people believe in. And when it comes to Venus Orion Comics, I create merchandise myself with my brothers with Striking Quixotes. As you can see right here, this Venus Orion Comics t-shirt was something that I've also had during my campaign of Varian Keller's Vampire Killers. And I don't only just have Venus Orion Comics t-shirts. I have hats, I have mugs, nylon tote bags, I have mouse pads, wallets, keychains. And these are all the merchandise that coincide with Varian Keller's Vampire Killers and Venus Orion Comics itself. And if that's something that you're also interested in and you want to get a hold of Venus Orion Comics paraphernalia, apparel, and t-shirts and everything, definitely let me know in the comment section below, or also email me, and then I'll actually put up a pre-order for a lot of those items on my website as well. So definitely let me know if you're interested in that. But as I said before, if you're able to convince people, or if you have an IP that people resonate with, then people are going to gravitate towards the merchandise, and that's where you're able to make a living off of creating comic books. So to give you a definitive answer, can you make a living off of comic books? Yes, absolutely. Not because you created a comic book, but because you create a living world that an audience resonates with. And this is why I want to end the video where I started. Would you create if nobody even reads it? Because when it comes to me, as you can see right here, all these posters, I did it for myself. It's something that I'm passionate about, something that I enjoy, something that I love. Regardless if people read it or not. I even went out of my way to have my artists create the artwork for this arcade stick with my Venus Orion Comics IP on it, because I enjoy it. I love it. I wake up every day and look at the vision that I have created, and it keeps me motivated. It keeps me driven. And this is something that I enjoy doing. The world building. I did that for me. Not because somebody told me to do it. Not because I want to become popular. I did it because I love creating. If Venus Orion Comics never became a massive success tomorrow, I'll still be creating this world. Still creating Varion Keller's Vampire Killers, Neo-Delphia, Alter Squad X, Codename Viper and Cobra, Neo Suit Johnny. The list goes on and on because I love it. And this is my message to you guys. Create because you love creating. Create for yourself. Don't create for an audience, because an audience will find you and they will resonate with the work that you have created. Never bend the knee for nobody. Never try to please everybody, because you can't please everybody. Stick to your vision and stick to what you enjoy doing. Because at the end of all this, if Venus Orion Comics never reach massive success or never amount to anything, I still have the things that I've created, and I would be able to share this and pass it to my daughter and also to my future grandchildren. And who knows, they may even pick up the mantle and pursue their creative visions. And never let somebody dictate your creativity, because the people that demand to change your vision wasn't your audience to begin with. The right audience will find you. And that pretty much wraps up this video. I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment sections below. So if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button for more indie comic experience in the Venus Orion Comics universe. This is Brian Howard Blackson Jr. signing off.